For loops let you repeat a block of code a certain number of times. Let's say I want to print a message over the serial connection 10 times. I could type out the serial printline function 10 times, or I could put the serial printline function inside a for loop, and I could tell the for loop to run all the code that's inside it 10 times. This is a lot less work than copying the serial printline function out 10 times. It's also a lot easier to adjust the code to run a different number of times or to change the message that gets printed. Fun fact, loops and if statements are what's called control flow because they control which code gets run or executed. Let's take a closer look at a for loop in Arduino code. There's a lot of code here, so let's break it down into small parts so we can understand it. Just like an if statement, the for loop has round brackets that you put some stuff inside, and then curly brackets. The code that gets repeated goes between the two curly brackets here. 3 things go inside the round brackets, and they're separated by semicolons. The first thing is the initialization, and runs once before the loop. We usually use it to create a variable, which we call the counter. You can use other counters later, but for now, it's a good idea to use an int named I that starts equal to 0. Next comes a semicolon, and then a condition. The for loop will keep running as long as this condition is true. So this loop will repeat as long as I is less than 10. We also use conditions in if statements. The last thing is called the afterthought because it happens at the end of each loop. Usually, it's a change to the counter. I++ means increase I by 1 every time the loop runs. You could also write I equals I plus 1, which means set a new value for I, which is equal to its last value plus 1. The stuff in the round brackets is all about controlling how many times the loop runs. Ooh, a fun fact. What could it be? Arduino uses a programming language called C++. This is because it's based on an earlier programming language called C. The ++ is a programmer joke that means a better C. They could have also named it C is equal to C plus 1, but that would have been a little too long to write. C++ is known for being very complicated, and even the person who invented the language says he doesn't really understand all of it. So don't feel bad if you don't know something or you don't completely understand it. You're in good company. The code that gets repeated is here, in between the curly brackets. So this loop prints the message, hello. I can change it to print the value of I, the counter. It's important to know that you can use your counter variable inside the for loop, but you can't use it outside the for loop. I'm going to put this for loop inside the setup function so that it will only run once. Remember, if the loop runs once, each line of code inside it will run 10 times. Okay, it printed 10 numbers, so the code inside the loop ran 10 times. Each time it looped, it printed the value of the counter I. I started off equal to 0, and then I increased by 1 when the loop started again. So the next time I was equal to 1, then 2, then 3, all the way up to 9. And as soon as I wasn't less than 10, as soon as it was more than 9, the loop stopped running. Great. It's really handy to use a for loop with an array, but you have to be careful to use the right starting value for your counter and the right condition. If you want to loop through a whole array, you should start the counter at 0 so that you start on the first element of the array, and the condition should be that I is less than the length of the array. For loops are a really tough concept. I still make mistakes with them all the time, and so do professional software developers. So don't worry if you don't completely understand them right away. You'll get to know them better by using them in your code.